Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal Rahman, and I'm Rich Griffin. And I just want to take time here to appreciate all of our listeners and the reaction that we get, the response. And don't forget, when you subscribe to our podcasts on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, feel free to leave a comment, to leave a review. Always appreciated, and we pride ourselves on being one of the smartest baseball talks on the podcast universe. So, I mean, it's a low
Quite
bar.
a tagline.
It's a low bar, but we do our best. Uh, so, before we get into the Blue Jays and their current, as we speak, four-game losing streak, three of them blown by bullpen. Let's talk about a little NHL playoff action because the Leafs, I mean, it's nosebleed territory for the Leafs. They're into the second round. They have a 2-0 lead. Like,
Jeez.
I mean, where's the parade route going to start? I don't know, but I know the last one was in black and white. So, uh, what are your thoughts on that series so far? With as we speak, the Leafs up 2-0 in the series.
It's good for Toronto. I think they had to win those two games. I guess that's the feeling, anyways. But I think they've earned them. You know what I mean? It's kind of nice to see. Florida just hasn't looked quite the same as everyone expected. Now we'll see what happens going home. But full marks. I mean, I think this is the best. I said it a long time ago. That's the best equipped they've been for a playoff run with the upgraded D and obviously the goaltending. I mean, we'll see what happens there, but it's been better than it's been in a while. So I'm not a Leaf fan, but I'm happy for all the Leaf fans. It certainly makes this time of year a little more exciting when everybody's geared up for the next Leaf game. So playoffs overall have been fantastic. I mean, those finishes to the first series, Winnipeg with a second left, and Mikko Rantanen show he put on in the third period against Colorado. I mean, that's as good as it gets. I've loved it. So
They're saying that Rantanen has been involved in the last 12 Dallas goals. That's incredible.
that's clutch.
Yeah, that's
That is clutch.
and with the as far as the Leafs are concerned, I mean,
That had Roger Clemens vibe when Rantanen
right.
shoved
I,
it,
I always
looking up
believed
to the
that,
press box.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
He did look up to the press box after
he
that game.
did.
Um, but I've always believed that with the Leafs that they could go deep in this, and I'm not a huge Leafs fan coming from Montreal, but their defense, as you pointed out, much better. And I've always thought that their key guy would be William Nylander in the playoffs. And as long as he keeps, they showed him wearing the same suit for the last three games, getting to the ballpark, getting to the arena.
Right.
I'm sure he'll be wearing it again the next game in
Yeah.
Florida. But yeah, it's more so than Marner and Matthews, probably Nylander show. And you really haven't seen Tavares step up and join Nylander on that level, but it's going to happen. And I can see them going to the third round. And then who knows? As you point out, Florida hasn't actually been Florida so far, but and then Vegas and the Oilers are like it's crazy. From some point when they flipped the switch in the last series, the Oilers have been dominant.
They looked like they were going to go out, and LA was just so much a better team for the first three games, 3.5 games. And then here they are.
And the series nobody's paying attention to is the Caps and the oil Caps and the Hurricanes.
Kings.
Yeah,
Hmm.
nobody. They'll be the next opponent. They'll be the
Yeah.
also ran team. But to me, the Hurricanes have a chance to get through this round clearly, and then through the next round as well. They're a well-run team with a lot of playing the game right. So
They have always missed that game breaker guy though. That always gets them. I mean,
a guy like a guy
you
like
can
Rantanen,
outcourse everybody all night, but if you can't score a goal when you need it, that's always been their bugaboo. And I don't know if they're any different now. I don't believe in them that way, but
if only they had a guy like Rantanen.
100%. That's the guy they're missing, clearly.
Too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, too
Um,
bad is right.
so now the Blue Jays, as we record, again, I keep emphasizing because a lot of people will be listening later in the week and it may have turned around, but the Blue Jays are on a 4 game losing streak. Three of those were games that they were leading and the bullpen could not hang on. And we're not talking bullpen pieces that were middle relievers forced into late inning action because the depth of this high leverage group of Jays relievers is impressive. You know, you've got Jeff Hoffman, you've got Jimmy Garcia, you've got Brendan Little, who's been really swing and miss unhittable
Been good.
when he can get the ball in the zone. And yet the bullpen has blown three of the last four. One on Saturday against the Guardians. Sunday they were down the whole game. But the 2 games in Anaheim against the Angels have been very, very concerning because it's your high leverage guys that are coming in and not doing the job. What's your opinion on what is happening in that regard?
That's a good question. And the real concern is when all your high leverage guys hit the shitter at once. I mean, you don't see that too often. You know what I mean? Now, the first thing you would think is they've just been overused, but honestly, I don't really think they have been. Um, I think it's unfortunate. Hoffman sure looked like his stuff was as good as anybody's, and it hasn't quite been there in the last little bit. So, it's hard to believe he'd have arm fatigue at this point. Like it's May, early May, and he hasn't been abused. Like it's sometimes sometimes you can't explain it. I think sometimes you go through that, and baseball's hard, and sometimes you get hit. It's just really bizarre that Jimmy imploded the last few times out, and if those guys aren't locked in, it could be scary. It could be a long. Yeah, I feel bad for Schneider because what's he supposed to do? Who do you go to?
Yeah, he looked in the post-game interview yesterday, he looked defiant and whipped at the same time.
Yeah,
Um, but to me, and I agree with you, it's when you hear the broadcasts and they're going, well, you know, these guys have been used quite a bit. They've been used in Mark Eichhorn area. They're on pace for about the most used guys are on pace for about 81, so half the games for the season, which is a lot. But yeah, but if you've hit a wall, if your group has hit a wall on May the 8th,
yeah, that's the
your
point.
season is screwed. You're
Yeah,
done, you know? Because when are you going to give them a break? Are you going to put them all on the IL at one time to give them to get them to catch their breath? And then you got to bring Dylan Tate to be your closer and whoever.
no,
But
they just gotta pitch better, man. Like there's just they cannot be fatigued. It's just, I mean, however, I mean, as you noted, I mean, his stuff wasn't quite the same the last couple nights. Hoffman specifically. So obviously that's a concern.
yeah,
But
with Hoffman. He walked the first, he walked the bottom of the order. He walked Paris on Wednesday night on 4 pitches with a 2-run lead in the bottom of the ninth. Now the warning signs go up at that point. What
right
the hell are you doing? Three sliders off the plate and then a fastball that he cranked in.
in, yeah,
But like his fastball wasn't anywhere even teasing a hitter into swinging at it. Too many pitches were a foot above the strike zone, way outside, and some inside, like way inside. And to me, you can have the same velocity. You could hit a wall, or you could have something physically wrong and still maintain your fastball velocity. The only thing that you're missing is at that 97 or 98 or 96, you're trying too hard for velocity and you lose your movement because it straightens out when you're fatigued. And so it's kind of hard to read the radar and say he's lost velocity because he hasn't. But what he has lost, I believe, is command and movement, and that comes from trying to overthrow to compensate maybe for some sort of a physical thing that's going on. And you don't want that to happen in terms of Hoffman because you think back to the two physicals that cost him
Right.
contracts in Baltimore and Atlanta before he signed with the Jays. Of course, the Jays are also the team that signed Max Scherzer, thinking he could give them 25 to 30 starts. And he goes, "Oh yeah, no,
3 innings.
this thumb thing has been bothering me since 23." And they gave him 15.5 million, and he supplied 3 innings so far.
And well, that when you can't, when people won't take your money, you start to get into the riskier options, and it's like I see stuff online about, well, was it a good idea, a bad idea? It was the only idea they were left with, so it was like either do it or you get nobody. So and like Hoffman, it's always in the back of your mind, right? Like, oh Lord, like if he goes on the IL, the first thing is, oh, there you go. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's going to be exactly the reaction.
mhm.
And you say that when nobody will take your money, that's what happens. You get into risk. On the other hand, you could be like the Dodgers and you don't care about spending the money and you don't care about the risk. You just want inventory. It's like Reggie Jackson's garage. He's got 25 high-end premium cars. How many can he drive at once? And
Well, the
That's the Dodgers roster.
yeah, the Jays roster is only one car, and it's the one you're not sure is going to get you around the block. I mean, they don't have an inventory. So
The Jays roster is Chuck Wepner's garage.
that's right. Holy smokes. Yeah. So there's a slight difference in the philosophies. You can take risk when your garage is full. Um,
So that after Berrios led off on Wednesday night, he gave up a home run to Paris at the bottom of the order. First only batter he faced in the seventh inning, but it was a great outing by Berrios. By and large, he dominated. He left stranded runners on third base with less than two out. He did what he had to do for a win. Only thing is that the Blue Jays offense didn't do what they had to do for a win. And there was an interesting comment that I heard, and maybe you could give a thought on that. But when the Blue Jays have a couple of runs lead, for instance, Wednesday night, um, sometimes their hitters, their key hitters, and I'm talking Vlad specifically, look disinterested. Like this game's in the bag. We've got these guys in the bullpen. So he comes up, first pitch, grounds into a double play and lopes down the first base line like Pepe Le Pew. And like you're thinking, well, maybe a couple more runs would be key.
yeah. Haven't
You,
they been not paying attention to this, what team they're on?
yeah, yeah. Do you see
I
sometimes
see, I
the
see.
weakness in the roster in that regard?
Well, here's what I see, and we went back to talking about this a lot before, and I kind of think this has to do with the philosophy of the new hitting coach. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see a lot of quality at bats sometimes. I see these guys trying to jump, trying to do damage, as they say, and they're trying to do it quickly. So they're trying to like sneak attack people, and when pitchers know that that's your approach, you're not going to get those pitches to hit, and you end up rolling over and stuff, popping it up. I mean, you're just and it's a domino effect. Like you don't get deeper into counts, you don't make the guy work. Like, and those are their best hitters. Like other guys will have good at bats, but I mean, they're just not the same quality of hitter. It just seems like they're just not having patient quality at bats, Bo and Vladdy. And I think it's costing them and it's hurting the ball club. They're just not doing the damage that you need them to do right now. They're just kind of middling along. You know what I mean?
To your point, um, we saw on Wednesday night Kikuchi, old friend, you say Kikuchi pitching for the Angels, and the bottom two guys in the order, Straw and I forget who was batting ninth, Clase, the Gold
Yeah.
Glove left fielder.
Great play in the ninth last night.
But yeah, so it was Straw and Clase, and they worked together. They worked 17 pitches in their first at bats against Kikuchi.
Right.
And after 3 innings, Kikuchi was in the high 60s in pitches. Now there's a guy, because you want to get to the Angels
The
bullpen.
Angels, man.
Because you
Yeah,
look at their bullpen ERA, and I know ERAs aren't the be all and end all, but you look at their bullpen
an
and you want
indicator.
to get there. You don't want to be facing Kikuchi's nasty 96 with the movement and so like what did they do? 67 pitches in 3 innings. You're grinding.
Yeah.
For the next 2 innings are 10 pitch innings for Kikuchi, keeping him in the game longer. Now,
Hmm.
is that just an aberration, or is that the philosophy of the pitching coach or the hitting coach, as you point out?
Well, I think it's been an indicator, I think, because that's kind of where they've looked. The top guys have kind of approached it all year that way, particularly Bo. I know Bo is a slasher. I know but man, this year it just seems like he's forcing it. And Vladdy swings at too many early pitches and early counts. He's too good to do that. He's got to get more favorable counts, and then he can really do damage. And I think it'll come, but you are right. There's a lot of times where when it's not going well, Vladdy doesn't exactly have the best body language out there either. So, um, that can frustrate some people. But I just don't see them having the quality of an at bat that you need to have for the quality of the player they are, and given those guys down at the bottom of the order better chances to do stuff because he's got the grind through the top of the order. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Remember when Cito Gaston was criticized so much on championship Blue Jays teams because he just seemed to sit in the corner of the dugout and not really take an active, emotional, hands-on role. Well, to me, the TV broadcasts have come so far in terms of showing you everything, showing the dugout, showing it.
Yeah,
You can't get away with anything. And I think that hurts not Bo, but it hurts Vlad because Vlad could be down 4 runs and be smiling and chatting with the first baseman or kibitzing with the opposing dugout. And like it hurts Cito so badly. And I know that Vlad is a great player, and
yeah,
his numbers aren't his numbers are headed in the right direction. His
yeah.
power, you've seen his power getting better this year, but and like you want a guy to have fun playing the game, but you also want a little bit of hate for the opponent, and we're going to talk about that in a minute with your Ironbacks.
Yeah.
But I think that the cameras and the television, 'cause fans think they care more than the players if that's the case. Like in a loss, you look and the players aren't reacting as poorly as fans are at home as throwing a boot through their television or something.
That's kind of the disconnect you get in all sports now. I mean, as the separation between what the common man earns and your professional athlete, there's just become, less. I mean, it's just how it goes. I mean, the players aren't going to approach it the same way. Do they care about winning? Sure. But is it, the same way it was 20, 30 years ago when, that was your lifeline, so to speak. Now with the finances, it just changes everybody's outlook a little bit, I think. And the fan, they don't feel the same connection that you would feel to guys back in yesteryear. And I'm not criticizing it. It's just the way it is. And the desire to be angry on a professional athlete's spectrum isn't quite the same.
Yeah. I guess when you're guaranteed 500 million over
Yeah.
the next
You
50.
get over things a little easier.
Yeah, right. The sun
Yeah.
will come up tomorrow,
Yes. Yes.
and my next check will be deposited.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Which brings up, that's funny that we go from there to umpires. I want to go to umpires right now because there were a couple of incidents where the kill the umpire, we hate the umpire feeling has sort of been skyjacked away from the normal hatred for the officials in the NBA, the NHL, and now in baseball you get Bill Miller, who's a veteran home plate umpire. he went on last week and there was a play at the plate and he was the home plate umpire. He turned on his mic to overturn the call that he had made. And as they're going to a commercial break, because it ended the inning, it went from safe to out, ending the inning. As they're going to commercial, he forgot to turn off his microphone to the crowd, and he's F-bombing himself for missing the call. And you're better than that. You're better than that. I think that is going to help his own image and maybe the image of all umpires that these guys actually give a shit.
They do. I mean, I've always been a big defender of umpires. I think it's like I don't even have a problem with guys missing calls. I think I'd rather have calls missed and the art and flow of the game carry on because there's more value than that than us standing around waiting to see. Half the time you can't even tell if the guy was safe or out. So umpires, they can only be criticized, and it's nice to see some maybe turn the image around for, if not for a few minutes. My only criticism of umpires is, instead of trying to use technology, how about if we just focus on finding the best umpires and just let the game play out with human beings instead of technology? So if a guy isn't up to snuff, like the players, they get sent down to the minors. And I mean, obviously it's not that simple. And you find the top umpires in the game. So let's worry about finding the top umpires and less about the technology. But for these guys do care. We know that. They're out there doing a job. And watch the balls and strikes. They're right most of the time. It's quite impressive. And I'm okay with most of the time. I think there's an art to finding out an umpire strike zone, working with it, the catcher's doing it, the pitcher's doing it, the hitter's doing it. That's baseball, not some square box on a TV screen.
I
My rant.
need another opinion from you then on umpires. It seems to me that the umpires, the young umpires, and they all look the same now. It used to be, you could tell a guy by how fat he was
Yeah.
on the bases, but now they're all in the gym every day. They all get evaluated on fitness. But the guys who started in the minor leagues and have worked with the robo ump and the appeal, um, their strike zone is really good.
Mhm.
Now, my question to you is for those veteran umpires who went to spring training in 2025 and were subjected to the appeal with the top of the helmet,
Yeah.
um, do you think that changed their strike zone or that it made them focus a little more on what the actual dimensions of the strike zone are?
I don't know if we've seen it yet because it was spring training, but as it obviously comes into the game, which it will, yeah, I think it locks you in a little more for every umpire. Um, you don't want to be embarrassed if you're always getting your calls overturned. So I think you're going to adapt and you're going to change your strike zone. And whether you like that or you don't like that, I think that makes kind of common sense, right? If you're a low ball guy and it's not hitting the zone and you're getting your stuff overturned over all the time, I think you're going to quickly try and adjust. So, you're not, there's a lot of reasons for it. Never mind, just public embarrassment, but you don't want your reports to be, negative and not get assignments and things like that. Yeah, I think that's human nature.
After I saw the Bill Miller clip, um, they kept showing umpire highlights, and one of them was Guccione, who I've hated through the years. There's a ball fouled at home plate. It bounces up towards the third base dugout, and he races over and catches it in the air. And I'm going, and then he waves to the crowd or he acknowledges the fact that he did that. And then there was the umpire at first base. There's a dive of a guy trying to be safe at first. He rolls past the bag. The umpire jumps over him, lands, and gives it a really theatrical out call. And I'm thinking maybe these guys are working on their image. Maybe they're trying to be like humble and lovable.
Ron Luciano.
No, neither word fits him.
Um, hey, why not, man? I'm okay with that. A little more flair in the game instead of everybody being so robotic. But
Yeah,
well,
I remember like the umpires union used to not be very strong. And I remember that baseball was trying to reel them in because they would be very confrontational, like with Pete Rose, with different managers, and it's almost like they enjoyed the
of
confrontation.
course, went looking for it sometimes.
Yeah, and so MLB tried to reel them in. Part of that was going to um, major league umpires rather than National League umpires and American League umpires. And I remember the big controversy was that neither National or American League umpires wanted to do all the cities. And
Right.
I knew exactly why, because these umpires got meal money every day and they got lodging money every day. And if they had to go, they had deals with everybody in the National League for tickets and for sign balls and for everything.
Yeah.
So if you're a National League umpire, and those are the ones that I knew, you had accommodations in somebody's spare room or whatever.
Yep.
You
Refri-
had you had meals, you had restaurants where you could go and get a free meal and
Your pocket and your money.
yeah. So they're pocketing all that money. So the feeling was that they didn't want to go and have to reestablish themselves in the other league. They were very happy with where they were and what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they
You
had
have to
a
use the other guy's connections. The American League, I guess they're
yeah, the
befriending.
same thing.
Yeah.
And the union, there was a union meeting in Times Square, one of those restaurants in Times Square, and the X or the Jays were in New York at the time. And I went to cover the meeting. And I walked in, and I don't know if they thought I was an umpire or whatever, but they're just chatting up all the bullshit, you know. And then one of them recognized me and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I came to cover the meeting." And they threw me out of there so fast. So
So
they're
you
not
didn't get
all,
anything?
no, they're not that friendly, really. But maybe they're trying to work on their image. That's all I'm saying. They got a lot of work to do.
That's great.
A high bar. Oh, and there were like we would go. There was a group of us: Dave Van Horn, myself, Larry Walker, a few others would go looking for late night places if there was a night game the next day. And there were some after hour places that the umpires knew every after hours place. So that's where we had most of our conversations with umpires and got to know them. Joe West, Cowboy Joe West,
How about Joe?
performed in a giant barn in St. Louis across the river in East St. Louis, which is the murder capital of America. But he would perform with his band and then umpire the next day. But that's where we got to know him. So really cool.
Yeah, I don't think
Umpires
those
are
things are
people too.
happening the same way anymore.
No, no, it doesn't happen
Yeah.
the same way
Yeah.
anymore. Let's see now.
CB Buckner isn't playing the OK Saloon in
Good
Texas
point.
on it.
Let's talk a little bit about your Ironbacks. You had some announcements. Season starts on June 5th.
Seventh, yeah,
Oh, June
starts on the fifth,
7th.
home opener on the seventh. Guys report on the first. We went live with tickets yesterday, so obviously hoping everybody buys into what we're selling here on an elite college product. I think everyone that comes out is going to see how much talent we have out there and be really surprised at how high end it is. So um, go to ironbacks.ca and get your tickets because I think it's going to be a fun summer for the 2 months that we're there. And with the quality of talent and the mentoring they need, I decided I need to go out and get myself a top-notch manager. So I found one very established and high-end guy, and I'm staring at him right now. So I want to say thank you to you, Rich, for
Well,
joining me in year one of this adventure. So
yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I know that we scoured. You were asking for my advice, and we went through a list of managers, and I always believe Well, I took 4 years off because I went to work for the Blue Jays.
Right.
I've always had the passion to get back. Um, and I've dealt with college players in the past. Burlington, we had a great team that should have won the Canadian Championship that year, but our starting pitcher's father was retiring from the Vienna Opera House, and he had to go over for his final performance. So I'm sure that's not going to happen this year.
Now, hopefully we don't have the same issue.
But I think the difference between the levels that I've managed in the college age teams is the depth of the talent. And you're going to have a roster that has top to bottom depth, and it's going to be a pleasure to lead that group. To me, it's always been a question of if you have equal talent, the team that's going to win is the team that executes and understands the game and pays attention to detail. And that's going to be the Ironbacks because that's the way we play aggressively, and we don't accept um, lazy base running or incorrect decisions. They're corrected quietly on the spot, won't happen again, and that'll be the separator. Is that there's a lot of plus we've got Canadian pride, being the only Canadian franchise in the Perfect Game League.
Correct.
There is a Canadian pride that will be like Mark Carney going to the White House, you know? That'll be us crossing the border. So,
Well, and very much, and I'm trying to obviously focus on that. We'll have a lot of Canadian players, and that's the whole point of it. So we're looking for, I'm trying to highlight how great Canadian players are. I'd also like to see the community come out and support all these guys, and show everybody what a great baseball country this is, and it's certainly in the Niagara region. So, come on out, and we'll put on a show if people want to show up. So I think they'll be very pleased with how we build this organization as we go along. So
yeah, and I was at on the last homestand. I was at the ballpark and I talked to Ernie Clement. Ernie Clement played it's Albany in the
yeah,
Perfect Game League, and
correct.
I asked him about it. I told him I was going to be involved with the Niagara franchise, and his face, he just this biggest smile, and he recalled how much he enjoyed his summer there, how good the baseball was, and how much I'm going to enjoy it. And I hope fans who choose to come out are going to leave with that same feeling.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. So come on out, fans. Buy your tickets now. They are on sale.
Perfect.
Ironbacks.ca.
And that brings us to the AL East. The AL East, for all of a sudden, Mal, is the worst of the six divisions in baseball, has the
That's
worst
wild.
combined record. And now
Wow.
going into the season, it was Orioles are going to probably finish on top of the division, even though the Yankees, they look like they're as good or better than last year, even losing Juan Soto. Um, so you've got Orioles, Yankees, Red Sox look that they got Garrett Crochet, they looked improved, and they got Alex Bregman, they looked improved. And then you've got Tampa, who's going to be playing in a minor league ballpark, so we don't know. And we've got the Blue Jays, who we were saying mid 80s would be an expectation, and it's not over. I mean, they're 4 games under as we speak. But how is it in your mind that this division has gone for a shit?
It's you could see how it would be possible, but I certainly didn't anticipate we'd be here and they'd be the worst division. Uh, Now, do I believe they are? No. I think you've got some turnarounds coming, but nobody could anticipate. Well, it, you know, Baltimore, sometimes people can't stand prosperity. They had all the pieces, and we talked about that before. They just never committed to the process here. It's been a collection of prospects, and just let's see what happens when they get here. They've not really managed their roster and got it to the level it needs to be. And the fact they're this far under 500 is alarming. But when you kind of just kind of leave your pitching staff as is and lose some guys, it can filter in that kind of, that kind of negativity, and it feels like it has. The Rays, you just don't know where they're going to be. And the Blue Jays are kind of just, I'm not surprised. I mean, like I say, can they be better? Yeah, but all indications are they should be worse than their record.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you're going, oh, they're right there and better days are coming. It looks like worse days are coming. Like they've won more games than they should have, and that's the concern. So I mean,
My optimism with the Jays is the bats of Santander and Kirk seem to be heating up. My concern is Bo. He doesn't seem to be really progressing like a happy Bo should going into a free agent walk year. Um, but yeah, the Jays, as you point out, they can be better and probably will be better. I don't see them as a always under 500 team in 2025. So we'll see. But is Rafael Devers, the Red Sox have to make a decision now. They've lost Tristan Casas at first base for the year. Do you think the best idea for them is to move Devers to first base? Because I think his slow start was learning to be a DH and not really wanting to be a DH.
yeah, right, sure. I don't know what in order those are. It might be the wanting part. Yeah, and I think I understand where he's coming from. He had a guarantee that he was going to be the third baseman when he signed there. And, I get you are always trying to get better, and that's understandable, but I think he needs to get back on the field. And I think putting him at first base is probably the wise move at this stage because he's just not the same guy yet. And that's probably just disinterest or just, I'm sure, learning how not to play defense. It does matter. I mean, DHing is not an easy thing just to sit around and have four at bats a game. So yeah, I think they got to get him on the field. It could be, it's not a blessing, but it could reignite him a little bit. And there's an opportunity to get to the playoffs in this whatever you call the American League these days. So
Yeah. But speaking of how tough it is being a DH, to me, and I've come from the National League when they didn't have a DH. So to me, the toughest thing about paying a guy $22 million like Devers or a lot of DHs, and then you come to the ballpark and your star player you see 5 times in a game. He comes out of the dugout 5 times. So a maximum of 20 minutes. So he's got 20 minutes of action, whether he's in the batter's box or running the bases. For 20 minutes out of 3 hours, you see your star player. And that's what makes it so difficult to sell those guys compared to LeBron or somebody who's on the court and just there's only 5 guys out there and they're dominating their game and they're out there for 34 out of 48 minutes. So yeah, I don't think DH is right for anybody in their prime like Devers who can play a position. And I think that moving him to first base would be best for him and for the Red Sox.
and this game is played by human beings. It's not fantasy baseball. You just can't plug guys in and they are what they are. Like their psyche matters, you know what I mean? How they prepare matters. Guys, that's why you coach and manage, Griff. You
Yeah.
got to get the most out of your players. And when you force guys into roles that they don't want to be in, it's very rarely does it go well. And this is a case in point. Like you just took the guy's job away and you're paying him. He's your best player. He was your best player.
This
It's
is
a
an
tough thing to do.
yeah. This is just an aside going back to the Ironbacks, and you made the reference of this. This is how you motivate. This is how. Do you believe, and this is just a personal question, do you believe that the players will object to my pregame batting practice 90s hip hop as the soundtrack of their summer?
We're gonna find out. I have a
All
feeling. I'll let you know in a
right.
couple games in if if a guy can get some calls that we got
Yeah,
to
yeah.
change.
Let me know. I mean, don't let me
No,
get.
I actually think that'll go over well, to be honest with you. So let's
Um,
let's do a social experiment.
the Blue Jays again. They made some roster moves. partway through this road trip. Oh, speaking of road trips, I got a question. I mean, we've both been on so many road trips as part of the traveling party. I mean, I covered with the Toronto Star for 20 some years, but that's way different than being on the inside and riding
Oh,
the
yes.
buses
Oh, yes.
and riding the charters, which I did for 4 years with the Blue Jays. You did for 12 years, and I did for 22 years with the Expos. And I always found that road trips were an opportunity for bonding and actually getting better as a team. But the Blue Jays are not doing well on the road this year. I think they're 5-12 now. What is that a sign of? And is there something wrong on the inside if you're 5-12 on the road with a team like that?
Well, maybe they got too many people in the traveling party, so it's pretty hard to bond. You almost need two planes nowadays. So, and I say that in jest, but there's something to that. I mean, when we were traveling, Griff, and even more so you with the Expos, the traveling party was really small. So you really did feel like you were part of the club and it was a bonding experience. And there was very few staff members for the players to obviously talk to, relate to, get the things they needed. So it was a much tighter group. So as they expand, it's less like that. Now, I'm just not saying that's the reason for anything, but I think this place state is probably more randomness than I would say it means anything with their lousy road record, other than, um, you don't have the last at bat. I mean, clearly teams play a little better at home than road. This is a little much early in the season, so I wouldn't attribute it to anything in particular at this point. See how it goes, but yeah, I think it is tougher to bond on the road nowadays. I think we've flooded everybody with so much stuff. It's overkill sometimes, and you miss out on those things that you're speaking of. Those things aren't given much thought anymore. How what the travel party is like, how they bond, how the unit comes together, how they interact as teammates. There's less of that now, and it does matter because it's still a team game played by human beings, right? When you hear hockey, when you hear all these other sports, oh, the tight knit group, they came together. Maybe that's what you say when you win. I don't know, but I think there's something to it.
Yeah. No, you brought up the point of smaller traveling parties back in the day, and that's not even that long ago. I remember when the Blue Jays were talking about adding an assistant hitting coach because I think we were in Seattle and the one hitting coach was there and working with everybody and had got there really early in the day. But right now, I think major league teams are like Sybil. There's just too many voices in their head, you know?
Yeah,
And and
it's true though.
yeah, like the when you were on the road previously, there was one hitting coach, one pitching coach, one manager. There was a maximum of five coaches, a manager, two trainers, and a traveling secretary and a PR guy.
Yeah,
Me
that's
that,
right.
and then the strength and conditioning guy. One guy came later, but it was a recent addition, and it's just a lot of bodies, and you can't be friends with all of the non-uniform personnel, all of the non-playing personnel as a player, and I think it disrupts the closeness of the unit. That's
It does. There's no question about it.
um, Blue Jays made. I was starting into that. The Blue Jays made some roster moves. They're looking for obviously the answer to fifth starter. They got Spencer Turnbull, who is, I believe, eventually going to be the fifth starter. He was available. We talked about him in the offseason on Exit Philosophy. He was number 50 ranked available free agent, and he went unsigned. He had a no hitter back in the day with the Tigers, and now he's at the complex in Dunedin, player development, and he's just working it out. And when he's ready, he'll go to Buffalo and then join the major league team as a fifth starter. But right now it's Jose Urena, maybe Eric Lauer, who knows who else. But what do you think of that and the fact that there's they've had to scramble to find a fifth starter and weren't ready, despite the fact that everybody knew there was a chance that Mad Max Scherzer was not going to last the month of April.
And this is the criticism we talked about. They had no depth. We said it over and over again. Understandably, it's hard to find it. But there were if all these guys that you're talking about that they signed, the one guy who's got some pedigree is Turnbull. I mean, not to say that he's going to be the guy. It's there, who knows what he's going to be right now. But how do you not bring guys in and have them in your system so we don't have to go through spring training in May? Like, so he's already there. You've got two or three guys that you go, we got some backup plans. We don't know, but they're there in the likely event. Scherzer's not ready, or Bowden Francis is not exactly Max Scherzer 2.0 because we saw it in September. We need options, and they just didn't have that. So here we are signing Turnbull in May.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the Scherzer thing, I was one who went on like Overdrive and some other and said that I thought he would make 25 starts.
I
I
know.
don't know why I thought that, except that I'm a very optimistic guy. And the fact that when his thumb got hurt, he was totally not fine with it, but he knew that that problem existed. And the Blue Jays, did they know that that problem existed, even waiting until a physical before clearing him and giving him $15.5 million?
And it's what I said earlier. Like when you have trouble in the off season like they did, you're not looking at these signings in a vacuum. That you're left with the higher risk stuff because you couldn't get the guys you wanted. So there's an issue with them signing guys that they wanted. That's obvious. They've been down this road for the last few years about chasing guys and not getting certain, players you want. So you make a trade for a Jimenez, and you're signing guys with high risk like Hoffman and Scherzer because you're trying to do something to win this year, understanding that this could break at any time. So clearly teams are passing on Hoffman. You took a chance. It could work out wonderfully. So far, other than a couple outings, it has. Scherzer, I mean, the worst case scenario hit $15 million for 3 innings so far. So it's not a calculated risk. It's like you said, the Dodgers make those calculated risks because the garage is full of cars already. They're already stuffed. The Jays, this is their chance that they need these guys to perform instead of a bonus if they do, and it looks like a brilliant move. So, and that's why I don't understand why you don't go find the Turnbulls early and get them in your system and try to build some depth that way. I mean, I'd love to hear a reason why you're scrambling to find that guy in May as opposed to February.
Yeah. Are you fine? Because I'm fine with the top three in the rotation.
Oh, they're great. Been great.
Berrios, Gosman, and Bassett have done the same job. No loss of effectiveness over the last 2 years when they were that same top three unit. Are you fine with that and just filling in around? Say it evolves into those top three guys, then Francis, who's been a roller coaster. We're not sure what we're going to get. I mean,
Right.
will he return to last September? Probably not because the scouting is caught up, the adjustments have caught up. And Turnbull, a healthy Turnbull. And we know basically what he provides when he's healthy, but he's only made 34 starts over the last 5 years. And he had Tommy John surgery in 2022 and missed the season. But a Spencer Turnbull who's healthy and Spencer Turnbullish
Right.
is that five good enough?
Uh, no, not well. It's as good as you're going to get. I mean, it's not bad in comparison to other rotations, but again, you're just lacking depth throughout the roster, and obviously the bullpen that's a little scary the last few days. But I mean, you got to hope that those guys get their games back in relative order, and there's no reason to think they won't. But um, it is what it is at this point. So you sure better hope those top three guys, nothing happens to one of them. Um, because you're not built for depth. It's all over at that point. Um, you're just kind of winging a prayer. So, but sure, I mean, if you could go those five with Turnbull and Francis, I think it's good enough to keep you in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you need those. You need this. You need to score some runs too, Griff. And it's just not a lot there.
Well, I think one thing that Blue Jays fans should be sort of optimistic about is the starting rotation 3 years down the road, because obviously this older group that is there now, the top three, aren't going to be there forever. Berrios might opt out at some point. The contract of Bassett is ending. Gosman's got one more year after this, but Baseball America released a top 100 list, a new 100 list, which they do every couple of months. And they've re-added Ricky Tiedemann to their list, and he hasn't really been in a game in over a year. And they've got Trey Savage, who's cleaning up in Dunedin and is about to be elevated to Vancouver High Class A. And he was a draft pick last year, obviously the number one draft pick last year. They got Cal Steven, who was the number three draft pick last year. Um, he was at Mississippi State, and he's doing the same thing to hitters in the Dunedin in the Florida State League, as is Savage. So, like, there are options out there for the future, but for now, and the guy that's suffering in by comparison is the guy that they shone the spotlight on last summer is Jake Bloss. Nobody talks about Jake Bloss as the future of this rotation. Um, is that a good thing that Bloss has sort of faded into the wings? I got no volume on you.
There we go. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. I say with Bloss, no, it's not a good sign, but he's not the high end guy that those other guys, project to be. So, I mean, that trade's not looking so great today, but who knows? It can turn around. That can turn around. But no, you need all those guys. You need Bloss.
When Jonatan Clase gets called up instead of Joey Loperfido, I think that that's a sign of what they're thinking of Joey Loperfido.
Well, but in fairness to Clase has earned it. He's
Yeah,
been the only guy down there, and I do like that.
plus he's
I
a
do
switch
like
hitter.
when guys put up numbers and then they get an opportunity. I think that's
Yeah.
how it should be because sometimes that doesn't happen. Um, because there's reason to think they'd want to bring Loperfido up and showcase him and make the trade look better. That happens, but at least they give Clase his opportunity to say, "Here's your reward." So
I think he's still chasing that double into center field that ended the game on Wednesday night.
it went to the corner. You looked up at it went right by him like he never even touched it, and maybe he didn't.
I don't think he did.
He
I think
should have got on all fours at that point and just crawling around. That was
he
something.
had, he had to make that play cleanly and desperately to keep
Yeah,
a winning run at third base, but he didn't come up with it clearly.
no, he didn't.
Um, Daulton Varsho, was too much being made of his return in terms of fixing all things? Because defense in center field was not a problem while he was out. I mean, he's made a couple of plays, one of them
Yeah,
of his own doing because they don't have artificial turf where he was, and he tripped and then rolled over
that
and
was some play.
backhanded. Um, but was too much being made, and is it unfair to expect him to be a savior on this offense?
Of course it is. He's not. I mean, we know what Varsho is. Now, will he help a little bit? Sure, because you're replacing a guy who wasn't hitting at all in general. So if Varsho's going to hit 210 to 230, with 20 home runs and just be a good base runner, smart player. It's going to help, but he's not saving anything. That's just not his game. Um, he's kind of established what he is. He's going to play really good defense and give you a little bit of pop and be a generally smart player. So it helps. It's just not going to it's not a Santander coming into your lineup, a middle of the order guy. He's a bottom of the order guy.
Yeah, I think Daulton Varsho may not have saved the Blue Jays season, but he has saved, in my mind, the career of Alan Roden, who was like wilting and probably losing tons of confidence on the bench at the major league level, riding an 0 for 20 something streak and not getting to play. And the fact of Varsho coming back allows them to basically send Roden back to Buffalo and
Yeah.
regain his confidence and
And play every day.
yeah,
Yeah.
play every day to give it another shot. Maybe later in the year, maybe next spring. But they saw enough of Roden where they know what he can do. He needs to be confident in what he can do. They're probably more confident in him than he is in himself at this point. But
Right.
I mean, that might be Daulton Varsho's biggest contribution so far this year is allowing them to send a guy back to where he should be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Um, oh, the Barriera, I forgot to mention him among the guys who's on the way back, but he's the guy who was drafted late in the first round,
Oh,
and then he MF'd all the teams that passed on him, said, "I'll make you pay," and then he got hurt.
and then he got hurt.
Um, Bullpen. Well, we've dealt with the bullpen, but like, do they need to make more use of Eric Lauer?
Well, they're not going to have a choice.
Yeah, like
You're going to see him.
there's there's two guys that we have to apologize to, and one of them is the backup catcher who has the highest position player WAR of anybody, and he's only
Right.
started 9 games.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll apologize to him, Heineman, and then Mason Fluharty.
I knew you were going to say Mason
Got to
Flaherty.
apologize to Mason Fluharty. He was called upon in his major league debut in a situation that he should not have been called
And
upon.
the second game too.
Failed. Second game failed. But
Yeah.
since then he's been Brendan Little with better control. You
Yeah.
know.
Been good. I
And
mean, the stuff is limited, but same with Lauer. It's limited, but I
well,
mean,
I'd rather have Lauer out there sometimes than some of the right-handers that they throw out there. Like
for sure.
Dylan Tate, I was a big Dylan Tate fan when he was in Baltimore because he had a live arm. He's been injured
Yeah,
since.
a live arm. Now it's gone.
Yeah, now he's just throwing 91, 92 and looking like he's hoping to get people out.
Right.
But the guy that I don't mind being gone is Lovelady,
Yeah.
Josh Walker. Anyway, the final item on our list is the top 5 most disappointing team MLB starts through May 7th. So your top 5 out of 30 disappointing teams. We're going to start with number 5, and that'll be yours. I'll go with my 5, and then I'll go my 4, and we'll go that way. Snake ranking. Okay, who's
Number
your
five for
most
me is
disappointing teams?
yeah, number five, Minnesota Twins. I thought they'd get out of the gate, especially in that division, much better. And so far, they've just been your typical AL Central club. You know what I mean? They're just hanging around, not doing a whole lot. And the talent that they have compared to that division, you'd think they'd be more closer to the Tigers and where they're at. So, I mean, they're about a couple games under, I think. So it's not like all is lost, but I would have thought they come out quicker and just kind of be at the top of the division. So they made my number five. Yours?
My number 5 is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I know that they've struggled in recent years, but you get the Paul Skeens bump, and you get the O'Neill Cruz bump, and you get a front office that has all that Blue Jays background, and you sort of pay attention, and it's a great ballpark. But since day one of this season, they've been disappointing off the field and on the field. You know, taking down the Clemente sign and throwing away those bricks that people had paid for on the concourse, and the guy falling out of the bleachers, not their fault, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then now on the field, they're like really not very good, and people would looked at them as an above 500 team, and they're far from that, and not looking that they're going to get better anytime soon.
Right.
My number four is the Toronto Blue Jays
Oh, wow.
because I believed, like when I said I think they'll win 84, 85 games, that to me was the floor. And I didn't want to be too optimistic because my reputation is not to be too optimistic,
That's right.
except for the Niagara Ironbacks.
Yeah, correct, correct.
Yeah, they just, I mean, everybody's paying attention. We've discussed them to death here, but they're my number four most disappointing.
Mine is the Texas Rangers. I expected them to be really good this year, and it just hasn't happened. They've had some injuries too. So I'm still waiting for them to get their act together, but this is a couple years of this now. So I think most people projected them to win a lot of games, and they're not looking like that's happening just yet. So for me, they're my fourth most disappointing team. So my number three is the one you just mentioned, Pittsburgh. I have them as third, only because they're so bad. That's how disappointing they are. Like nobody was expecting them to be world beaters, but they were certainly in the mix for being right there, that anybody could win that division. And you had the high end pitching. And once again, this is an ownership issue. I saw somebody note about blind faith in the GM and the manager here. This has nothing to do with that. This is ownership, just like Baltimore, not allowing you to compete when the window to compete is staring you in the face. So to me, they're so very disappointing, and I had them at three. So which
My number three was the Minnesota Twins. I think they were your number five. I should have revised it. Byron Buxton is getting hot. But this is a team that I predicted in the preseason to win that division handily, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Pablo Lopez is bouncing back a little bit. Um, they've got so much talent, but another great ballpark and a great fan base, but I thought they were going to be a lot better than they've been. So I got them at number three. My number two is the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves, I didn't think Chris Sale was going to be able to repeat what he did. Spencer Strider was supposed to be back and really only made that one start against the Jays, and is still bouncing back. I think Schwellenbach was overhyped for a guy that really hasn't proven that much, and
awfully good though, but yeah, fair enough.
nobody knows how to spell his name.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just don't like the Braves since they claim that they won 15 divisions in a row, even though we kicked their ass in
Sure.
94.
That's fair enough. That's a valid reason too. Yeah, I think our top of our lists are going to be the same. My number two is the Atlanta Braves. All the reason you mentioned, and of course, I think we're in agreement here. The Baltimore Orioles
I
are
know.
number one. Um, I assume that's your number one because that's just very disappointing on all levels. And again, shame on them for not taking advantage of where their young players are at and going out and adding to that and taking the division,
You know
taking it
what?
over.
Orioles are indeed my number one. And where that started to me was at the trade deadline when they were trying to reinforce what should have been a deep into the playoffs contender, and they screwed up all the trades. They made like treading water deals instead of
Yeah.
improving their team
And
deals.
then when you're going up and getting Charlie Mortons who are finished
Yeah.
and adding that as your like you're losing Burns and it's shame on them.
Yep. So that takes care of the top five disappointing. We agreed on the top two.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So before we wrap up, just a few things. Ross Stripling retires. I enjoyed dealing with him so much. Brett Boone is the hitting coach of the Texas Rangers, as one of, I don't know how many hitting coaches they got,
Yeah.
but He's the main guy. The Cubs released Trevor Richards. He's available if the Jays want to take another shot at him. But he is, I think, their guy on the IL is a better Trevor Richards. But big O. I was going to go through fans falling out of the bleachers history, but
Yeah.
I want to hear that. All
Right.
right. So that's it for another Exit Philosophy, and thank you all for listening. And we will continue to do our weekly Exit Philosophy, and I will continue to write on griffsatpitch.com on Substack during the 2 months of the Niagara Ironbacks season. So don't worry about losing our coverage and our edge. We might be a little more exhausted and have a slightly different timetable for recording. But don't worry, we will be back, and we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you subscribing, reviewing, comments, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks, Mal.
Take care.